How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, January 24th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Whit Merrifield. The elite second baseman for the Kansas City Royals turns 33 today, and my intention with this episode of The Elite is, of course, to zoom in and see how he impacts the MLB on a micro level, game in and game out, to show that he's one of the best players to play. And I'm also going to zoom out and look at how he's impacted the game on a macro level and see how his individual accolades have been able to shape how many people perceive him as one of the better second basemen, one of the better infielders in baseball on offense and on defense as well. If you're not familiar with Whit Merrifield, I guess he's more considered just like a contact hitter. He brings a lot of effort, but he can also run bases as well. And considering it's pretty tough to be a second baseman, he plays that position pretty well. And if they need him outside of second base, he does play around the field if they do need like a utility player. So that's Whit Merrifield's play in a nutshell. Giving a little bit of background, Merrifield was born in South Carolina, and he would go on to play high school baseball in North Carolina. He would go on to play baseball at the University of South Carolina, and after his 3 years, which would see him go all the way to the 2010 College World Series, he would go on to hit a game-winning RBI single to win and give South Carolina the championship. After his 3 years at South Carolina, he was drafted in the 9th round of the 2010 MLB draft by the Kansas City Royals. And then just for reference, this is the draft where Bryce Harper was taken with the number 1 overall pick. Manny Machado was taken with the 3rd overall pick, just to give a little bit of background. It would take him a good amount of time to make it all the way up to the Royals. His actual debut with the team would come in his age 27 season in 2016. In his debut season, he would go on to play 81 games in a season where the Royals finished with an 81-81 record. This was the year immediately after they had won the World Series in 2015, which is their second in their franchise's history. And the Royals, as a franchise, have not made it to the playoffs out of the AL Central ever since they won the World Series in 2015. But in 2016, which was Merrifield's first season, in the 81 games he played, he finished with 88 hits, which is 7 more hits than games played. He had 44 runs, 22 doubles. He had 3 triples, 2 home runs, and 29 RBIs. He would finish the season with a .283 batting average, and his .323 on-base percentage and .392 slugging combined to a .716 OPS, which, other than this most recent season, is the lowest OPS he would have in a year. But, of course, after that season, he would earn his spot, so he would start with the Kansas City Royals in his second season. His second season with the Royals was his age 28 season in 2017. In that season, he would start 145 games in a season where the Royals would finish with an 80-82 record. They won 1 less game than they had the previous season, finishing 3rd in their division. They would fail to make the playoffs, and they would not have an 80-win season since 2017. In his first full season, he would finish with 169 hits and 145 games played. That's 24 more hits than games in his first full season. He finished with 80 runs. He would finish with 32 doubles, the first time he crossed the 30 doubles mark. He would finish with 6 triples, which is the second most triples he's had in a season. He would finish with 19 home runs and 78 RBIs. Both of those are the most home runs and RBIs he's ever put together in a season to date. He would lead the American League in steals with 34. This is the first time he had done so in his career. He would finish with a .288 batting average, which was higher than his rookie year, and his .784 OPS would be higher than the previous year, mainly because his slugging percentage went up from .392 to .460, the second highest slugging percentage in his career. He wasn't necessarily named an all-star, and the Royals wouldn't make the playoffs, but it's very tough to be consistently this good at the sport. His 3rd season with the Kansas City Royals came in his age 29 season in 2018. In that season, you would play 158 games in a season where the Royals finished with a 58-104 record. They had won 20 less games than they had 22 less games than they had the year before. And in a full season, the Royals, that is the least amount of wins that the Royals have had in a season since Whit Merrifield had been there. In this 3rd season, he would finish with 192 hits in 158 games. He would lead the American League in hits. This would be the first time he had ever done so. He also finished with 88 runs, which at that point was a career high as well. He finished with 43 doubles, the first time he had crossed the 40 doubles threshold in his career. And the second year, he's had at least 30. He would go on to finish with 3 triples, 12 home runs, 60 RBIs, and he would go on to lead the American League in stolen bases for the second year in a row, as he had 45 on the year. That's the most stolen bases that he's ever put together in a season. He would finish with a 304 batting average, finishing the season with his first batting average that was above 300 in his MLB career. His 367 on-base percentage, which to this day is a career high, combined with his 438 slugging percentage, would add up to an 806 OPS plus, just to get a sense of how well he was hitting, how many bases he was making it to. Even though he wasn't named an All-Star in 2018 after leading the American League in hits and stolen bases, he would finish 17th in an MVP voting race that would eventually see Mookie Betts take home the title. This is the only time that Whit Merrifield had gotten MVP votes. And of course, the Royals had missed the playoffs. Following this season, he would go on to play every single game that there was available from 2009, 2020, and 2021. In his 4th season with the Kansas City Royals and his age 30 season in 2019, Whit Merrifield would play all 162 games in a season where the Royals finished with a 59-103 record. They won one more game than the previous season, as they finished 4th in the AL Central. Whit Merrifield will go on to lead the American League in at-bats, hits, triples, and times caught stealing in his very first All-Star season. He would go on to finish with 206 in 162 games. This is the first time that he crossed the 200 hit threshold. It will be the 3rd year in a row he had at least 162 hits in a season that has 162 games. He would finish with 681 at-bats, the most at-bats he would ever put together in a career. He would also finish with his career high in runs, as he finished with 105 runs on the year. He would finish with 41 doubles, making it the 2nd year in a row he had at least 40 doubles, and the 3rd year in a row he's had at least 30. His 10 triples would be the most he's ever put together in a season, and the lone time in his MLB career in which he's led the American League in triples. He would finish with 16 home runs, 74 RBIs. He would finish with 20 stolen bases, which would make it 3 years in a row he's had at least 20. This would be the 2nd year in a row he's been caught stealing 10 times. He would go on to finish with a 302 batting average, making it the 2nd year in a row he's finished with a 300 batting average. He has not finished a season with a 300 batting average since 2019. His 348 on-base percentage and career high 463 slugging percentage would combine for a career high 811 OPS. And he would go on to finish with 315 total bases, the first time he would log at least 300. He would go on to be named an All-Star for the very first time in his 4th season, his 3rd year as a starter, as the Royals continue to miss the playoffs yet again. Following his first All-Star season, he would come back for his 5th season on the topmost team of that organization. In 2020, which was a season that was, of course, that was predicated around the coronavirus shortening the 162 game season to 60 games for each team. In this season, Whit Merrifield would play all 60 games for a Kansas City Royals team that finished with a 26-34 record. They finished 4th in their division, and even though the playoffs were expanded to include twice the amount of teams, the Royals still were not able to make it. However, in his age 31 season, he would finish with 70 hits in the 60 games he played. He led the American League in at-bats for the 2nd year in a row, as he had 248 of them. That would be the only stat other than games played that he led the American League in this year. But this would be the 4th year in a row that he would lead the American League in a statistical category. He would finish with 12 doubles, 9 home runs, 30 RBIs, and he would also finish with 12 stolen bases in those 60 games. He finished with a 282 batting average, and then his 325 on-base percentage and 440 slugging percentage added up to a 764 OPS. And at the conclusion of the season, like I said, the Royals didn't make the playoffs. This transitions into his most recent season, his 6th year with the Kansas City Royals ball club in his age 32 season in 2021. He would play 162 games for a Royals team that finished with a 74-88 record. That is 15 more wins than the last full season that they played, but they still went on to miss the playoffs. In these 162 games he played, he will go on to finish with 184 hits, making it the fourth consecutive full season that he's played in which he's had at least 162 hits. He's done so in every single season in which he's played at least 145 games. This is the sixth consecutive season. He's 6 for 6 in terms of seasons in which he's had more hits than games played for the entirety of the year. He had 22 more hits than games played this last season. He would lead the American League in at-bats for the third year in a row as he had 664 of them. He would finish with 97 runs, the second most amount of runs he's ever put together in a season last year. His 184 hits are the third most hits he's ever put together in a season. He led the American League in doubles, or at least tied for that lead for the very first time, as he finished with 42 of them. This is the third consecutive full season he's played in which he's had at least 40 doubles. Very tough feat to hit, and this is his fourth straight in which he's had at least 30. He would finish with 3 triples, 10 home runs, along with 74 RBIs, which is tied with his first All-Star season for the second most RBIs he's put together in a season. He would also lead the American League in stolen bases and the MLB, as a matter of fact, as well. His 40 stolen bases are the second most he's ever put together in a season, second to 2018, where he had 45. This is the third time he's ever had more than 30. He would go on to finish with a .277 batting average. As to this date, that is the lowest batting average he's finished a season with. He would finish with a .711 OPS, which to this date is the lowest OPS he's ever had, as his on-base percentage at .317 was a career low, and his slugging percentage at .395 was the second lowest he's ever put together in a season to his rookie year. He would also go on to lead the American League in sacrifice flies, as he had 12. However, in his age 32 season, in 2 of his last 3 seasons, in his second straight full season, he would go on to be named an All-Star in the American League, which is a very tough thing to do. Not to mention that he was given a Fielding Bible Award, given to the best defensive player at each fielding position. Wasn't necessarily given a Golden Glove, but he was still given a defensive award that at least carries some weight. And that leads us to where we are here, as Whit Merrifield sits right here. After 6 seasons played in the MLB, in which he's had an incredible amount of hits, even stolen bases, and just doing what he needs to do at the plate, he's showing that even though the Royals haven't made the playoffs since he had been there, that is a very valuable infielder, one of the best players in the game, and especially as of right now, one of the elite baseball players in a league where you have hundreds of thousands of people competing for the same finite, even just hundreds of spots that are playing. And Whit Merrifield is a player that you don't have to question whether he's that level. I want to take this time to thank the Pro Baseball Reference websites, along with the MLB website, for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed for this episode. And if you ever get a chance, I would recommend watching Whit Merrifield. He currently wears number 15 for the Kansas City Royals. And of course, this baseball season will get started in a couple of months. But of course, up until then, I do think that Whit Merrifield is going to have a great season. So hopefully by this time next year, I'll have a lot more to say about him. And of course, once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back tomorrow on January 25th with all of today's highlights and exhibitions. With that said, thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another piece tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Peace out.